Is America facing a mental health crisis, a mental illness crisis right now as a consequence of the Trump regime? When I was in Los Angeles, an acquaintance of mine, somebody I've known for some years, who's in the news business, and I'm not going to name, he made a comment to me that he's feeling so stressed by Trump, he feels like he has to check his phone every half hour and make sure that Trump hasn't started a war. And in the news business, it's just, it's making him crazy. And he was asking for suggestions to de-stress. It's like, should I start meditating? I mean, how do I deal with this? And, my response was, we have to examine essentially the stories we're telling ourselves about what all this means. In other words, the internal dialogue we have. If Trump goes off and is nuts on something like he did this morning with Iran, then our internal response, well, yeah, that might trigger World War III and that might be the end of humanity, and I suppose that's a better way to die than a long, prolonged cancer. That's a pretty grim story to be telling yourself. Or alternatively, the one I tell myself is this country's been to hell and back. We fought World War II, we fought the fascists, we fought the Nazis. We had a civil war and we made it through that. We ended slavery, we enfranchised women. We had a horrible revolutionary war that started the country. We have not, in my opinion, yet reconciled ourselves to either slavery nor the genocide of Native Americans. But, hey, hope springs eternal. That's one thought. But, if you're struggling with this, and you have suggestions on how to cope with it, or you've discovered some great way to cope with Trump. The other way, in my experience, to cope with the insanity of Donald Trump is to get active. It's amazing how therapeutic it is to feel like you're having an impact, like you're doing something worthwhile. Even if you're just waking up your next door neighbor, your best friend, your brother, sister, mother, father, child, old college roommate, somebody at work in the next cubicle, even just that. This is therapy. This is how we have to deal with the age of Trump. And action, at the end of every show, I say, don't forget, democracy begins with you. It's not a spectator sport. You've got to get out there and get active, tag, you're it. I mean, that's how I've been ending my show for 15 years. And I do it not just because, hey, it sounds kind of cute or whatever like that, but because it's really true. One of the most effective ways to just deal with the anxiety, the stress, the oh my God, what's going on of Donald Trump is to do something about it. And I think, all those women who came out after the inauguration with the pussy hats on, the pink hats, this is great stuff. This is not only how we take back our country, but it's also how we take back our sanity, in my opinion. But, Trump today, he just flipped out again. Iran didn't get the memo from Kim Jong-un, right? Or from Saudi Arabia. If you want to have a good relationship with the United States, and let me just say this, speaking, I'm sure that Mr. Rouhani, President Rouhani, already knows this, and and Foreign Minister Zarif, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, already knows this. But this is a message for the Ayatollahs in Iran, for the Supreme Ayatollah and all of his buddies. What you all need to do is create some kind of a giant award for Donald Trump as best president ever. And you need to write him a letter saying, "Dear Donald, you've done such a great job in the United States and great work on keeping people out at your southern border. We have strong protection for our borders. We understand that. And we think that you are the best president ever." Signed, Love, the Ayatollah, and printed on a big piece of parchment, with some scroll work around the edge like an old illuminated manuscript, and mail that off by courier to Donald Trump the same way that Kim Jong-un does it. I mean, you've got Kim, who actually has nuclear weapons, who's actually testing nuclear weapons, who's got, now we know, missiles, high accuracy ballistic missiles and things. He's violating every treaty that there ever was, and more or less. And yet Trump is like, oh, he's a wonderful man. So Ayatollahs, take a lesson. Continuing on the Trump thing, I've got so much here. E. Jean Carroll has accused him of rape. We talked about this yesterday on the program in the context of how little media coverage it's getting. Now, the head guy at the New York Times in an interview yesterday admitted that they blew it. It really needs to be at the top of the front page. But Trump comes out and says that he would never rape her because she's not his type. Which raises the question, and again, I don't know why the media, can you imagine if Obama had said, I'd never rape her, she's not my type. Well, what type do you rape, Donald? Really? Is it, of the other 20 or so women who have claimed that you've raped them, which one? Pick one out. Tell us. We'd like to know. This is just mind-boggling. And then on top of that, we have the reality of Trump's America. Eugene Robinson wrote a great piece about this. He says, Donald Trump's immigration policy has crossed the line from gratuitous cruelty to flat-out sadism. Perhaps he enjoys seeing innocent children warehoused in filth and squalor. Perhaps he thinks that's what America is all about. Is he right, Trump supporters? Is he right, Republicans in Congress? Hey, if you're a Trump supporter and listening to the show, is Donald Trump right about, torturing children like this, essentially? If a regular parent, if you or me, had made one of our children sleep on a cement floor in the basement, kept the lights on 24/7, and refused to give that child a toothbrush, soap, blankets, bedding, or fresh clothing, we'd be in jail for child abuse, and our kid would be in foster care just like that. But Donald Trump, he's doing this. I think he actually likes the cruelty. I think this man is literally a sadist. Puerto Rico, still waiting on approved emergency food aid. Congress passed this. Trump signed it. Or maybe it was Obama. It had to be Trump. It had to be Trump because the hurricane happened. And, Bernie Sanders is out like, why are you holding this money back? This is nuts. Trump has failed us on the climate crisis, on the war hawking in Iran, on inequality, on a housing crisis, on economic issues, the economic crisis, on women's issues. And it could get worse.